Okay, so now we're going to talk about doing some different stitches with the Kreinik threads. And the first thing we're going to talk about is couching, which is one of the easiest and best things that you can do with these threads. So up at the top here, we have a single line of couching. So there's one thread here going across the fabric, and you can't see it because it's been couched down with a second thread in the same color. So it looks like it's just magically floating on top of the fabric, but it's actually stitched down to the fabric. Then we have a spiral. So this is two threads here, and then started in the center and then round and round and round. And they've been couched down with a second thread here. So we'll explain that when we do the sample. And then here we've got another one. So this is just rows of different colors of couching, and they've been couched down with another thread. So couching, if you're like, what's couching? I'm going to demonstrate that down here where I've drawn this little line. So couching is when you take one thread and then you take a second thread and you stitch over the top of the first thread to hold it down. So this red thread's going to sit on top of the fabric, and then I'm going to couch it down with this blue thread. So I'm just come up on one side and then down on the other. Come up on one side and down on the other. And then we just move this along as we go around our shape like this. So traditionally with couching, you would do stitches kind of a similar distance to each other, and you can either do it in a contrasting color, or like I have up in this example up here, you can do it in the same color so you won't really notice it. Something to keep in mind when you're doing your couching is how tight your stitches are. So this piece of thread right here is a flat piece. So when I bring my needle up, I want to make sure that I'm coming up at an angle that's just straight up like this. And then on the other side, straight down. I don't want to angle my needle underneath here at all or out. Just want to go right up and then straight down over the other side. If I do angle my needle, so let's say I angle my needle from underneath like this, and then I angle my needle underneath the other way, that's going to pull that together nice and tight. So that is something that you can do if that's the look you're going for, or you can keep your stitches nice and flat. So I'll show you this one more time in case you like the way that looks. So I'm angling my needle up this direction from underneath, and then angling down this direction. And that's going to pull my flat thread in nice and tight. Something else you can do, which is kind of fun, is to take another needle and kind of puff these guys out like this. So I'm going to start at this end. It's almost like a little snake or a little dragon, so you can do that if you like. And then because of this thread, the way that it spreads, so if you grab it over here, you can spread it out like this. When I flatten it, it kind of gets squished out. So that's kind of fun. Okay, so I'll go on a little bit further with this, and then I'm going to show you one other thing you can do with this thread. So instead of couching over the top like that, you could also consider, and this is not couching but just something else to do for fun, come up in the center of your thread and stitch it down like that. So these flat threads are really great for doing this type of thing. Now, if you want to use one of these thin threads to couch, you can actually separate. So this is one of these flat Kreinik threads. If I grab one from the top, and this is how I couch the sample up here, grab one from the top and then slowly pull through. And you can even use this as a decorative element. So imagine stitching that little ruffle down there to your fabric. You could do that. But if you want to use this as a couching thread, you can separate it and just take it nice and slow until you get to the end. And so now we have a nice thin thread that we can use for couching. So imagine this kind of couching over this. Awesome. And then I left these hanging because I wanted to show you what I do with them when I'm done. So we've got these threads that we've just couched, and now you could leave them hanging as a decorative element, or you can thread them up and then just bring them to the back side. And what's really helpful is if you take another needle and use it as a laying tool. So if you see, there's a little twist here on this side, but by putting my needle in there and slowly pulling down, I guarantee that this thread is going to sit exactly how I want it to. And then if I just flip it over onto the back side, I can just weave this tail in through the threads here. And then just cut that off, and that's what you're going to do with all of your ends. Okay, so stay tuned for the next video and we'll show you some other stitches with the Kreinik threads.